All right, folks, here we are. We're now talking Chapter 3, The 7 Shifters of Demand according to your textbook, page 42, 43, and page 44. Now we're talking about shifters of demand. You may recall that if the price changed, demand did not. We just moved along the demand curve. In other words, if the price changed, and we go here, if the price increased, we'd take it, shoot over it, drop down. This is your, yeah, I know, I can't draw this crazy. So here's your P1, P2 go up top, MQD goes less, and that's if your price changes. You just move along the demand curve from one spot on the demand curve to another. The demand did not change. QD did. This did. This did not. Well, that's all fine and good. But let's move on. Let's talk about these things that do change demand itself. Like, for example, oh, by the way, we assume that demand curve is going to change. So we're going to leave price alone for now. Let's leave price alone for right now. So you may recall some things changes. And there are lots of them, like income and such. For example, what happened to the demand for Tom Petty albums when he died? Do you know? Let's assume a regular demand curve at first. Everybody's happy. There's demand. There's D1. And we put a P up here. We pick an arbitrary price. There's P1. Shoot across. Drop her down. And that's QD1. Everybody's happy. That's a D. Okay? Stupid thing. Oh, that's a Q rather. That's a Q. QD1. So we got Q. And we got everything's happy. And then he died. Okay? Tom Petty died. What happened to the demand for his music when he died? Yep, it increased. The demand itself shifted to the right. In other words, at each and every price, at any price, no matter what the price was, people wanted more. So take the old price, shoot it over. Yeah, you've seen the Khan Academy. It's the same kind of stuff. I try to be a little more entertaining, though. I got a degree in this. I'm not sure about that guy in the con. He's conning you. Yeah. Boy, I haven't used my voice to sit here quietly playing solitaire all day. Notice that the QD changed, but what did not? Price does not change because demand did. Well, if price didn't change, it's one of those 7 things that shift demand. What are these 7 things that shift demand? Well, we looked at one already. Income. Remember income changed demand? Take a look on page 42. Read it. Pause the tape. Okay, we're back. Let's talk stuff like steak. What's happened to the demand for steak now that, golly, 22 million Americans filed for unemployment because the government shut the economy down like geniuses? Yeah, agree or disagree. By the way, you guys know that flatten the curve does not mean fewer victims. Flatten the curve meant that the victims would be fewer at any given time, but we'd have just about as many as we would otherwise, just spread out over a longer period of time. Email me comments, we'll talk, I'll show you. Anyway, back here. Steak, that's our title. What happens to the demand for steak when all these people lose their jobs? Their incomes do not increase, their incomes decrease. So their incomes are falling. Price is going to stay constant. But people are going to buy less steak. In other words, steak is expensive. If you have less money, I bet you're not wasting it on steak. You're buying other things, maybe hamburger, tuna fish, or other cool things like I like. If people are buying less steak, but the price has not yet changed, we're still going to have a lower QD2. QD2 is going to be closer to 0. Closer to 0. Remember, in the corner is 0. We're getting closer to 0. So if my price hasn't changed, then I must have a dot right here. If price didn't change, but something else did, like a change in income here, the demand itself must shift. The whole function at each and every price, demand itself is going to shift to the left because of a decrease in income. That's what the first shifter is. Another shifter of demand, I'm going to skip these two for now. We're going to jump on now to the bottom of page 43, I think. Let's talk about this bad boy, weather or season. Here's my man trying to sell snow cones in the winter. Yeah, he's not very smart. Coca-Cola, as you read in your textbook, can change their price. In fact, they used to make a machine that would change the price based on temperature or time of day. So here's our title. What's happening to the demand for Coke here in late April, early May? More people or less people demanding Coke? Just looking at the change in weather or season. Not income, nothing else. Ceteris paribus, one thing at a time. Let everything else be equal. Partial derivative, yo. F of x, we're looking at one thing in the parentheses. If the weather or season's getting nicer, people are going to want more Coke at each and every price. So the only thing we're letting change right now is the weather or season. We're keeping the price constant. People will want more Coke. Well, of course. It's good. It's bubbly. It's a soft drink. It's pop. If anybody listening to this not in Michigan, get with the program. It's pop. You know, soda pop. So we're going to buy more of it, even though the price didn't change, because the weather and season has resulted in a better time. We're into it. Another thing, if you look in your textbook, I don't know if this is about on page 43, top page 44, change in the number of buyers. Think pop. Not pop drink, but population. Population. Look at my map here. You can see a whole lot more people living east of this arbitrary line that separates the Central Plains from the Great Plains, and that's where a lot of people live. A lot of people live here in certain specific areas because they're on life support with artificial water supply. Rain happens here and not there. So, for example, the demand for things in this blue area where we live is very high compared to the demand for things in this white area of eastern Oregon where it's a freaking desert. Not a whole lot of pop being sold there compared to pop being sold here. So, let's title it. Let's call it pop. For those not in the Midwest, we're talking soda pop. We're talking beverage, soft drink, Coke, Pepsi, Mountain Dew. I don't care. So, what's going to happen to the demand for pop if the number of buyers changes? For example, my sister-in-law was on the school board up here at Gwinn near Marquette, Michigan. They used to have a B-52 SAC Air Force base that carried thermonuclear bombs during the Cold War. Tens of thousands of people lived there. Well, we won the Cold War, the Soviets went away, and so did the bombers with their bombs because we don't need them no more. And so did the Air Force guys. They have kids. They went to school. Kids left with the mom and dad, and they don't go to school there no more. Guess what happened to the demand for pop in the Gwinn Metroplex area, south of Marquette, Scandia, all that? Long story short, fewer people are buying pop because there's fewer people. The population changed, the number of buyers. And that's demonstrated by demand curve shifting to the left. So here's D2. And we'll notice that at the same price, no matter what the price is, people are going to buy less. The quantity demanded moved towards zero because demand itself shifted towards zero. Not price, a non-price thing. Here's another one. Oh boy. Well, actually, it's not boy, it's girl. It's Lady Gaga. And she used to be really popular with music like this. Yeah, those were the tunes. Those were the times. Gotta love it. Well, anyway, she was pretty popular for a time, and then she kind of fell off the face of the earth. And the demand for her music shifted to the left. In other words, people were buying less of it at each and every price. However, she went and did a Super Bowl halftime show. One of the best, in my humble opinion, in a long, long time. And she freaking jumped off the roof, landed right on a movable platform without bouncing, without being caught short. That's impressive. I was amazed. And after the Super Bowl halftime show, guess what happened to Lady Gaga music? That's right. The demand for her music increased at each and every price. So in other words, demand shifted to the right. Got ourselves a little bebop de boop. The price has not changed. We're not letting that change. We're only letting one thing change at a time. Yeah, let's pretend it's straight across. And of course, we'll notice that we have a greater quantity demanded than what we had before because a change. What was it that caused this shift in demand? Tastes, styles, preferences. Page 43, 44 in your textbook. Check it out. This is the thing that shifts demand the most, by the way. For example, if I had food or French fries or milk or something, depending on the time of day, the demand curve can be bebopping back and forth here. Just by the time of day because of styles, tastes, preferences, habits, things like that. Here's another thing that you should know about that changes demand. Expectations. A change in expectations of future prices. Let's put gasoline on here. What's happened to the price of gas in this economic shutdown? Well, I hope you realize the price of gas has fallen through the floor, right? So let's not let that happen here. We're going to assume gas to be constant at $1.40. What if I were to tell you that Saudi Arabia and Russia has come to an agreement and have decided to stop producing crude oil in the quantities they had been doing? In other words, they're going to limit the supply of crude oil from what it had been. There's going to be less crude oil. In case you don't know, crude oil is refined into gasoline. So there's going to be less gasoline in the future. If there's less gasoline in the future, what do you think is going to happen to price? Yep, price is likely to jump. So let's assume for grins and chuckles when Trump opens up the economy and Russia and Saudi Arabia stop producing crude oil and other countries are opening their economies, suddenly people are going to be driving again like they weren't before. And that's going to be a change in future gasoline use. Now we're talking now. Right now, gas is $1.40. What do you think is going to happen to the price of gas in a week or two? If everybody's opening up and starting to drive like they used to be, what's going to probably happen to the price of gas? Yeah, it's probably going to go up. So what do you do now? Price has not yet changed, but you expect it to go up. Chances are, if you have a big gas-guzzling truck like I do that takes 32 freaking gallons, you're going to get your butt out there to the gas station and get yourself some gas now. So in other words, we're going to buy more gas now before that price changes. So the demand for gasoline will shift to the right. Even though the price has not yet changed, we expect it to. So we're going to go out there and get our gas now before it goes up. We're going to fill up our big thirsty truck so we're going to have gas to drive around when we can drive around and not get in trouble by the governess because we're supposed to be locked down in the house. Hey, what if you expected the gas price to drop? What would you do with demand now? Yeah, that's right. If you expected the future price to be even lower, because you're expecting, why would I spend, all that money on gasoline now when the price of gas will be even less in the future? So you're probably going to maybe just top off a little bit or maybe get $5 worth or whatever and fill up later. So your demand for gas would shift to the left if you expect a future lower price. Your demand now will shift to the left. Here I show you again an expected higher future price. So the demand shifts to the right. We're going to get that gas now before it gets expensive. There are two things we have not talked about that shift demand. And I'd like to get to those in part 2. Whoops. So today we did income, taste and preferences, styles, taste, preferences, weather, season, number of buyers, which is population, and expectations. Go to part 2 here to see these. These are a little more complicated. I'm out.